Skill needs anticipation refers to activities to identify future skill needs on the labor market. And when we speak in the ILO about skill needs anticipation, we speak about a strategic approach which uses consistent and systematic methods. Sometimes it's used as a term interchangeably with forecasting or identification of skill needs. What is important is we're looking at the potential imbalances on the labor market, and these imbalances could be both quantitative as well as qualitative. Why is it important to identify these? We all, as individuals, workers, employers, education providers, and governments, invest into education training. And imagine the situation when someone has been trained for many years into higher education, let's say in economics, and at the end of the day doesn't get a job, rests unemployed, or has a low-skilled occupation eventually. So what does it mean? It means that the person eventually lost on returns, lost on the investment in education and training. The returns are lower than the person imagined, and the same also may concern government if the education was publicly funded. Yeah. And the reasons for that could be multiple. So it could be really a structural reason that the field of education of his studies is not something required on the labor market. It could be the reason that the economy doesn't really produce enough jobs at the skill level, at his skill level. So there is no really enough absorption of higher education graduates. Or it could be that his education is such a poor quality that it's really a quality reason, and that's why he's not employable. So we really need to understand what's happening there. And the complication is, of course, that the education cycle itself takes 3 to 5 years. And plus to that also the time to develop occupational standards or competency standards, as well as curriculum development, also take time. So we need to see ahead, we need to look at that ahead. And of course it's easy to say, but not so easy to do, because we live in ever-changing times, and actually the economy is changing ever faster than before. And this is also due to a number of the so-called global drivers of change, the factors that influence economies all over the world. And it doesn't matter whether we speak about developed countries or developing countries. So these factors are, for example, demographic change. We know that, for example, in developing countries, we still see the situation of growing labor force. According to the estimation of the ILO, we still need to produce around 40 million of jobs per year just to cope with absorption of the fast-growing labor force in the world. That's a huge challenge by itself. At the same time, we see the situation in developed countries with aging population and eventually shrinking labor force. But there are, of course, other global drivers of change, such as technological development, such as environmental policies, transition to green economy, climate change, such as globalization and trade liberalization, where many investment decisions are actually happening upon the availability of skilled workforce in the place of investment. And education attainment itself as well, because we know that in the recent decades, the situation with the achievements of education in both developed and developing worlds has improved tremendously. And at the same time, we still see that many employers cannot really find the workforce they are looking for. So that it's a situation of the mismatch. But due to the fact that there are more and more people available on the labor market with higher skills levels, it also affects lower skilled people who are likely to be crowded out. So we need to understand all those trends. We need to take them into account. And what is important in terms of the ILO, we work with our stakeholders, with constituents, employers, workers, and training providers and governments to understand what these trends will be and what we can do jointly in order to see the vision, identify the vision we want, and to achieve that. That also goes in line with the recent ILO initiative on the future of work, where we also speak about the future we want to achieve rather than adapting to the future.